Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Very official this time. So we've got our second round. We've got our stat wars. I'm just sounding a bit somber because I've got to admit defeat early on here. Luke shot out to an early lead. All those keeping count. I'll just off the bat. Luke got 5 out of 8. 5 out of 8. I've only got 3 out of 8. So, and I'm pretty sure we got pretty much all of them different, which was made it interesting and exciting. So it was a good start for the Stat Wars ahead. Another massive episode to talk all things about round two coming up. But quickly, Luke, the footy over the weekend. I know you were quite busy. I'll just say the Dolphins win was fantastic to watch. I watched it live and it was hard not to get into it. But what do you make of the footy over the weekend?
Yeah, no, mate. It was awesome to have it back in. Like I said, I wish I was able to probably more ingrained in it than I would have liked. A week later, actually, for me, I would have realized would have been a preferable start.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. It's interesting though. One of the first things, without like going too much into it, because I know we've got stuff to get into, but just think of those footy cliches a lot. With it's not a marathon, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and look, it's easy to say that, but I still reckon, and you've touched on it, and I just wanted to hold the brakes a little bit on it, but now I'm starting to put my foot on the accelerator on a little bit. Thought it might be one of the closest competitions yet, because I do
Yeah.
think we have seen that those teams, the Panthers, Roosters, is your top guns. Let's just not even hide it. They are going to. Well, we've seen from the get go. They both lost. They
Yeah.
both had lost, not just against teams that were top tier, teams that a lot of us haven't got picked in the eight. One team that has only just entered the competition, and what a way to enter the comp. And
That's
honestly,
fantastic.
we shouldn't have looked past Wayne Bennett here. But for me, I think, look, I hate to overreact, but I am worried about the teams that ever had a bit of a slow start this weekend and feeling a bit more optimistic. But I just think it's
Yeah.
just those key losses and those injuries for some teams, they're going to hurt early on.
It's funny how teams or fans spin it. Before round one, you thought the Roosters fans, Penrith fans, and that were all going on about they were going to win the comp, the favourites. This week, it's all right. It's only one loss. It doesn't matter. But I'll tell you what, I think every team just wants to win that first game and get the monkey off the back and just get the ball rolling. You don't want to sit on zero competition points for too long, which is the case of, unfortunately, what's going to happen after round two. And let's get into it. So we've got Penrith versus South Sydney in the first game Thursday night, back at the foot of the mountain. So 2 home games in a row for Penrith. Another massive game for him, another team that's going to come straight for him and basically not respect him, as they've already shown during the week with some of the comments to the media. But I've got this game, and I've mentioned the Battle of the Halves, which I think, in a way, is probably the big or the key to any game being won. But I think this one a bit more because we've seen last weekend Ilias really stood up into a role that we've been told he wants to make his own. So really like what I've seen from him. And then Cody Walker was sort of took a backward seat in a way. He wasn't his sort of dominant self, but they still got the chocolates really against Sharks and did it quite well in the end. So really liked what I saw from that halves pairing, which makes me feel, I know Nathan Cleary and then Jerome Luai are those people, but it just makes you feel like South Sydney halves have a chance to really do something out, go to the foot of the mountains and make Penrith start 0-2. They all believe, and obviously you got Latrell helping the halves out the south as well, which is always dangerous. But for mine, yeah, like the foot of the mountain, this is the pressure game for Luai and Cleary. It's weird to say that, but you don't want to be 0-2, the defending champs, and knowing week in, week out, teams are coming for you.
Yeah,
So
no, I completely agree, mate. It's like one of the things you'd rather be the one chasing than the one being chased. And
yeah,
you see
yeah,
that with I see that with like I watch a lot of combat sports and it's like that relief as soon as they lose the belt. Like obviously it's that gutter, but a lot of people not that they enjoy losing, but it's
yeah,
like all that comes with it, is it really worth it? And I think, look, yeah, like we discussed at the top, like 3 years in a row, that is at such a young age as well. That is hard going. So
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of pressure on, So it's gonna be really interesting to see how they bounce back. And also just thinking about especially Luai having, like I've talked about heaps of loss of kick out. fitting in with that new second row partner. I just wonder who's going to be that guy, because obviously who started. So last week he was with Garner, and Garner's still been there this week, I believe.
Yeah.
Outside him. So yeah, and like I wouldn't be
Got a rocket up
surprised,
him,
and
though.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that Garner's not that. I reckon Garner, is a quality player, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's there at the end with LOI, but it's a good chance he's not. So they still haven't sold those things where when they've headed into every other season when they've won the premiership, they've known their combinations,
Yeah.
and we can make a pretty fair bet that they're going to stick the whole way, which they have. This year is going to be the first year where trialing stuff, and that's really going to affect LOI. It's also going to affect Cleary. I know Cleary's side's the same, but there's still, all those little things like the hooker obviously changing, the way they deliver the ball, the way they get their sets going. Yeah, it's all happening here for Cleary and LOI.
It's very early on. You don't want to keep harping on that about this, and we probably will throughout the season. But you could tell the loss of Kickout and Coruscant was big for Penrith, and I think that was a big reason they lost that last week. They both play. I reckon Penrith would have got the job done. The stat wars I'm coming up with for this game, which halves pairing comes up with the most tries/try assists, so try involvements basically. I'll lock in the Penrith pairing purely off the fact that I feel like they just have to. And I think the fact that Latrell's carrying a little niggle in his knee might just hamper them a touch, the South halves pairing. So I'll just because I feel like Penrith have to do it, I'll lock them in.
Yeah, no, fair, cool. And ultimately, like, there's a side of me there where I want to go against you. I do think that I actually am going to join you there, mate. I just, at the end of the day, for me, clearly, if he's not the best player in the game, he's top 2, top 3. And I do think that when I still don't want to be caught down in them too much. And I think Luai's definitely got that. I don't want to swear, but he's got that mentality where it's like you doubt us once. It's like Samoa.
Swear, drop it. Just drop a swear. Just get into it.
Mate, I can't. Nah, but anyway. Like this Samoa is a good example. Like they got absolutely smashed by England, and he comes out and has a stellar World Cup. He's got that little mongrel about him, and I think he'll come back. And I think you bring up and that's probably my sway factor, that point you mentioned with Latrell. And ultimately, Penrith, for me, have the better go forward. Yeah. And Tola out this weekend, I believe.
Yeah. I think, I'm pretty, he is. He is.
Yeah, that's huge. So,
Luke Fafita comes in for him, so the young Rooster, ex-Rooster.
Yeah, and Sonny Luke will be utilised better this week. So I'm going to go if you're there. And ultimately, that will also be enough to get Penrith over the line in a interesting game. But yeah, I have been swaying up that option of the Rabbitohs upset.
I reckon we've gone on about that game too long. It's time to get to the next game.
To be fair, it is a key game too. So
it's probably arguably the match of the round in its first up. So a really big game for both sides. Can't wait for it tomorrow night or tonight, whenever you're listening to this, guys. The X Factor centers for the Eagles versus Sharks game is what you're pointing out here, Luke.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously the Sharks lost last week. And then I have a look at their lineup this week, and it's where I really fall into that look. Just back yourself in terms of a guy that knows footy, because I still look at the lineup and I think the Sharks are they're still not these great players, and especially I mean that like in terms of they don't automatically make rep teams, and obviously not many teams are filled like that, but a lot of those top teams are, even the Cowboys more so than the Sharks, the Roosters, Rabbitohs, all them. And then obviously when you take Hines out, it's the same, but they're just so solid. But for me, Talakai and Ramian, you can really make a case of them being two of the best centers, respective of their sides. And as a pairing, look, off the top of my head, not too many come close to them. And I think last week they put up, looking at their numbers, they're in for a big year, and they really proved it last week as well. Obviously, Penasini and Wonga Blake don't carry that star power, but they've got a lot of talent. Obviously, Wonga Blake's got a lot of question marks. What's his best position? Should he be in the team? he was hope for New South Wales, but he's still got those games where he can pull something out of the hat. And Penasini, he's emerging. Don't really know the ceiling of Penasini, but he's still got it. And for me, Eels are the better team right now, especially with Hines out. So they're going to have the better platform. But is it going to matter? Are Talakai and Ramian just going to have just enough given to them to win this matchup? But ultimately, I am going to go with Ramian and my stat wars. Sorry, mate. So for me, I'm looking at the most combined. Just make sure I get this right. Most line breaks combined and tackle breaks by the centre pairings. And I'm still going to say Talakai and Ramian, even though I'm picking them to lose. I still think there's a chance of a bit of a ball over. So even if the Sharks lose, I think these two could still get the bickies over the Eels pairing. Where if the Eels lose, I would be very surprised. So Sharks win. Obviously, I think they'll be the ones, that are very influential in winning. But I still see them performing if they're not playing so well. So I'm kind of, playing my cards a bit smart here. Yeah. But man, I am very intrigued to see, especially Ramian, if there is a right side injury for the Blues. I know Campbell Graham played great last week, but I think Ramian's a smoky too.
Big early call there. That could be a spoiler. That could be a headline there. That could be a post for you. I like what you're saying there. I'll probably agree with you, to be honest. I'll go the Sharks pairing, but I am tipping Para to win. I think Para should get the job done, but Talakai and Ramian are two big bustling centres who Sharks like to create a lot of their attack around. They like to get us to quick play the balls and the palm off and the line break assists and things like that. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think a lot of the attack comes off their back line and their centres. I think they'll be probably up for especially the tackle breaks. I think those two would probably do more tackle breaks combined than the whole Para club. So they're huge. So I'll be the same with you there. I'll lock in the Sharks pairing as well. Lock it in, Eddie.
Lock it in.
The Friday night blockbuster, the Queensland Derby, and you'd arguably say at the moment they're both the big brothers, but the Dolphins and Titans are closely following behind after all four Queensland teams won it over the weekend. I think that was the first time in a long time that all Queensland teams won on the same week. So kudos, Queensland Rugby League is partying at the moment. But I've gone an interesting one this time. I've gone the back line as well, and I've gone the wing off. So and pretty much what I've got to say about that is what a contest it is for the wings. And we've got four high-class, world-class wingers in the Broncos. You got Oates and Selwyn Cobbo goes back there with Reece Walsh back at fullback and Cole Felt and Murray Tuolangi, which we all know how great he's been last year and trying to carry that into this year in the World Cup. So four guys who are really good in the air, four guys who are really good with meter eaters, four guys. I probably Tuolangi out of this and Cobbo probably equals himself out, but Oates and Feld have a heap of experience and know what to do and have scored some freakish tries. And both Cobbo and Tuolangi just last year alone had some of their own as well. So I'm really looking forward to this battle, and I think it's going to cut a big impact of where this game will be won. And where I think this happens is where my stat war comes into place, and that's which wing pairing runs for the most meters. And I think that'll come down to a lot of helping the forwards out. So obviously your first couple of plays each set, and which it's a hard one, this one, because for mine, it's a hard one to tip as well. I keep tossing up for this one every day at the moment. I'm going to go because of the home ground factor, and I think they might be up to prove something. I'm going to say Cobbo and Oates to win this stat war. And I think Broncos might get it just in a close contest.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting take. I'm really solid on the Cowboys this week. They're currently the underdogs, if I looked correctly. That one surprised me, but then you got to remember Broncos did beat the Panthers away as well. And the Cowboys blew a lead. But that's also leading into my thinking that Jeepers, they would have got a spray. And ultimately, I do believe that the Cowboys will actually get a roll on. I think they started fast last week. And I think with their forwards and also Townsend and Dearden just constantly pressuring the lines. He really impressed me early on in that game. And Townsend just kicking to the corners, making sure he's not giving their wingers much space. And ultimately, I think those battles are ultimately why I'm actually picking the Cowboys wingers. I think they're just going to give less chances to the Broncos wingers, where I think they're going to be on the back foot more than the Cowboys, which is going to allow Tuolangi and Felt to thrive there. So for me, I'm going the Cows, and it's a lot to do with the other matchups as well, which is really cool. Like, obviously, we own in on these matchups, but everything plays a role here. So yeah, I'm going with the Cows, and before we pick back, but these guys are probably the 4 best wingers in Queensland. Yeah. Xavier Coates is probably the only one that maybe throw, but in terms of consistency, I think these guys are there. Obviously, you got Holmes that can play wing, but week in, week out, which is really rare to see. So how cool is that? I'm looking forward to it, mate. And honestly, I wouldn't have looked at this matchup myself, but I'm glad you owned it on it today.
Yeah, I've always got a little soft spot for our wingers. I love watching them. So as soon as I seen those matchups and who it was named with Reece Walsh coming back, I thought I had to pick it. So next clash, we got the first of the Saturday games, and that's the Roosters versus the Warriors. You're taking away this one with the classic clash of the captains, which is an intriguing one in itself, I think.
Yeah, well, for me, these guys are the heartbeats of their team. And I think, I watched the game of Dolphins I watched parts of it live, and I went back and watched it again. And jeepers, they were just under the pump. So I didn't really focus on the Roosters themselves, but ultimately, when the Roosters aren't clicking, especially early on, Tedesco has to do even more work than normal. He really needs, and we know what he's capable of. We see it not just for Roosters, for the Blues. He is a special talent. And Tohu Harris, even when the Warriors aren't playing well, you can guarantee Tohu Harris is their best on the park. And these guys are so important but so different. Obviously, we've got a lock and we've got a fullback, and we've got Tohu Harris can play, anywhere in the forwards really. So for me, I just think these guys are guaranteed to be a huge part on whether their teams win. And I think if the other players aren't clicking, which we've just kind of touched on, they're going to be huge. They're going to be huge either way. James Tedesco is one that benefits more when his team's clicking as well, where Tohu, he's just going to get through his hard yards as well. So I'm just interested to see the clash here. And for me, I've gone with more super coach points. And at the moment, I do actually think I'm still going to actually go with Tohu Harris.
Yeah. I was going to say, going off last week, just quickly, Tohu Harris beat James Tedesco in last week's Supercoach by about 30, 35 points, I'm pretty sure. So I know Roosters obviously had an off day, but they always start slow. So that could be for a number of weeks. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Now, and the thing is, if you're looking at the odds, obviously Roosters are favoured. But that slow start could carry. You just don't know how long that carries over. But for me, like we talked about with Talakai and Raymond, I think Tohu's still going to rack up points. I do think the Roosters will win. But ultimately, I just think Tohu Harris is not going to leave any stone unturned this week.
Yeah.
And if he's getting it, and he can get the point defensively or offensively as well. So for me, the Warriors are so lucky to have him. And I really hope that he is in a side with the Warriors where they are tasting kind of finals glory. Not saying grand final, but I hope he gets to see a deep finals run because he deserves that, Tohu.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit gutted just off topic a little bit because I had Tohu Harris in my Supercoach team and fantasy team all up until the last day of basically last Thursday, and for some reason changed it last minute to Radley. And I was thinking, Roosters are soft opening a couple of weeks and they'll rack up some points. And there's obviously Radley getting a HIA and knocked all over the place and just Yeah, I regretted doing that straight away once I seen the scores come through. But on your stat wall, I'll go different with this one. I'll go Tedesco just purely off the fact I feel like the Roosters need to do something. They were just purely embarrassed last week. And I know the hysteria was around the Dolphins and how well they played, which they did. But you got to look at the Roosters as well and go, you know what, they're supposed to be premiership favourites. And they had a few out, but that was a pathetic performance, really.
That was poor.
There was times where they were just walking on the field and stuff, and they just weren't interested. So I just feel like they'll have to turn up. And as you said, Tedesco leads that. And I feel like for them to win the game, I think this week Tedesco steps up and probably does one of his typical 1 or 2 tries. And I feel like it's going to be enough for him to get the points over Tohu. But it's going to be a hard one because I think he'll need to get at least 80 plus to beat Tohu. So that's a very close contest, that one. Dolphins versus Raiders in the next Saturday game, and Dolphins back to their spiritual home. Now, I've gone for the centre pairings once again for this one, but I've gone for a different angle. I've gone purely off the fact that, and this is to do respect for both sides, but lesser known centres in a way, not sort of ones that get any sort of hype or ever mentioned in your top 10s of positions and things like that. You've got Tomoko and Harley Smith-Shields for the Raiders, and you got Ewan Aiken and Branko Lee for the Dolphins. So fair to say, probably last week, I know Raiders didn't get the result, but both pairings did their jobs for their respective teams and did it quite well. But as I said, they're just never sort of those pairings that do anything flash, or you don't really notice too much of what they do. So in a way, I feel like because both sides have some, like, not Nick Kotrick and Hopewadi are sort of both attacking wingers. They like to get the ball and do some things. And then Asako was seen and Tessie New last week are sort of the same, and they need to get the ball. So the centers play an important role in getting the wingers involved and also trying to get a couple of meters here and there as well. So with this one, the stat war, I've gone for which center pairing earns the most Supercoach points. I've gone Supercoach as well. Purely off the fact that I don't think either pairing scores highly or in many teams at all. I think Ewan Aiken used to be when he was in the second row and you were able to select him at centre, but that's obviously changed now. You can't do that. So I've been tossing up. It's a hard one. I'll go the Dolphins pairing. I'm not confident at all, and that's just taking a random guess. Really, that's a flip of the coin.
Yeah, no, fair, cool. I'm just going to jump straight into that one. I'm going to go with the Dolphins as well. I just think ultimately and just talk about the Dolphins on a whole, momentum, man. And just that is, I just think that's going to carry over. And Raiders, obviously, they're great at blowing leads. They're great at coming back from leads and ultimately not getting the chockies after achieving a great feat, which was coming down. What was it, 18-0 down, and they were just 1 point away from winning it. It's going to be deflating, even though there's a lot good to take out of it. And you talked on those centers, obviously very young as well, coming up against 2 veterans. And I think that they're just going to lap it up. I think the Dolphins are going to win. I think they're going to cause the upset. And I think either Aiken or Lee's going to go for a try. I just think it's going to be one of those games where, they're going to be, they're just going to be, should I say, be able to take a bit of the glory because of some of the roll on that the Dolphins get at time. I just think that win from the first round, like if they lose that game, like, look, that could be like a 3-game swing. Just having that confidence that we actually can win. If they lose that first game, it's like, oh, well, what everyone was saying in the preseason is true. So for me, I'm a lot higher than the Dolphins. It's crazy. It's only one game, but man, that was awesome. Like, I can't get over how cool it was.
Yeah.
And to click so early on, I think the Dolphins centre pairing is going to get over the Raiders centre pairing here. And I'm not too high on the Raiders this year. I was kind of in the 8, just outside the 8, and then I've looked into it more and more, and it's just same old Raiders.
That could be a risk of bottom 4, to be honest. I feel like that could be
I think they might have landed in my bottom 4 too by the time I got there as well. Yeah.
I think that's I feel it's sort of, you just mentioned that click just quickly, and I feel like it's made a mockery of all the other teams that are trying to say, oh, we need time to gel and all this sort of thing by signing one or two players. I mean, the Dolphins have a brand new team and they've been able to gel and beat the premiership favourites in the first week. So the master coach is doing what the master coach does. The last Saturday clash, your boys, the Melbourne Storm, coming off a nice defeat of the mighty Parramatta Eels, sky high. You're missing Munster, which is a big blow. He's had to succumb to that finger injury, which I think everyone's seen, but they're up against the Dogs. And you've mentioned the top tier hooker battle, which I feel like is a huge battle for this game. So well done.
Yeah, I think for me, like I had to kind of think about the others. This one just popped right off the page. So there's not really too much to say. Reid Mahoney still actually played quite well in the losing side, and Harry Grant, like arguably the player of the round, obviously had the big moment at the end in Golden Point. Yeah, obviously they have different styles, but yeah, impacts. It's either going to be who has a bigger impact, especially Reid just being there, and also probably Harry obviously been in a more star-studded side. But with obviously, like you said, no Munster this week, he might obviously take more of a hang on, hold my beer. I'm just going to be looking for any lazy four around the ruck here. Ultimately, that's what I'm going to go for Harry Grant. I do think the Storm will be okay. I think without Munster, I will say I think it'll be a very low scoring first half, and then the floodgates might open a little bit. Look, Reid's going to get through his work though. Defensively, he's going to get tested. He's going to rack up the tackles, and also he's going to have some plays in the attack as well. But for me, Harry Grant, look, I've still got Appy as the best hook in the game, and that's saying something from the Storm fan. Obviously, Appy, there was not much to help Appy's case last week in terms of the way the Tigers played him. That story for another day. But anywho, but yeah, I think Harry, he's got a little chip on his shoulder. I think this might be the season where he proves it. And Reid Mahoney is a good player to prove it against as well. And to be fair to Reid, even though he's probably a little bit away from that, but I bet you he's thinking, I want to be the best hook in the game. So I'm really looking forward to this one. But yeah, Harry Grant, for me, he's going to be the key for the Melbourne Storm victory. And I think he might go outright on that new Dally M leaderboard, which I'm still unsure if I like or not, the way they've done it. Yeah. I think there's some flaws. But yeah, my prediction is Harry Grant is going to be your Dally M leader after round 2.
Nice. And just to quickly sum up, it's the more Supercoach points between the two.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, Stat Wars is the Supercoach points, and you're going Harry Grant.
Yeah, got too excited.
That's what he does. Every time he talks about his team and Harry Grant, he gets a bit too excited there. So lucky you're sitting down. It's fantastic. We're on the I agree with you. Reid Mahoney, he was the shining light for the Bulldogs last week. If he didn't play, they probably would have got beaten by about 50 to 60. He just he was the only player after that game where when I look back at it, like if they're fair income, the Dogs in the sheds, when they go around and go, I'll give you 3, 2, 1, you would have given it all to Mahoney. You would have said, nah, no one else deserves it. So purely off that, it's you start to sort of think, Reid might take this in it because he's just so focal point of the Bulldogs attack and everything they do now. But Harry Grant, for mine, steps up in the loss of Munster even more now. So that'd be a scary thing for the Dogs. And I predict Harry Grant to go 100 plus this week. So a little sneaky captain choice for Supercoach if you're out there playing. But yeah, he could be a good look for that because I think he's going to step up. Next game is the first of a Sunday clash, and that's the we've got the Tigers versus the Knights. So Tigers get the TV game down at Leichhardt. I've gone for the spine battle, so the 1, 6, 7, and 9. For the Tigers, that consists of Dane Laurie, Dewey, Brooks, Appy's been named. Let's hope that is the case because I just have still no idea why Sheen's done that. For the Knights, Miller is your fullback. You've got Jackson Hastings, Ponga, Hastings, and then you've got Jaden Brayley there as well. So I think both spines, when you look at it all together, sort of balance themselves out. in terms of quality. I think Tigers clearly get the hooker, or maybe not. Oh, yeah, provided
Clearly,
yeah, provided Appy gets the starting position, they clearly get that. But then sort of Luke Brooks and Hastings, they both have their on and off days. I don't think they've had many on days lately, so that sort of evens itself. Ponga, if he's on his day, can do it, but Dewey's such a focal point for the Tigers in attack, and we've seen him score a try last week. And then Laurie and Miller are sort of the same, elusive, sort of fast fullbacks who just sort of pop up as well. So I won't muck around with this one. The stat war for mine is which spine has the most try involvement, so both tries and try assists. I'm going to put my faith in the Tigers one more time, just at Leichhardt, 2 weeks in a row. Appy has to start, so I'll go the Tigers.
Yeah, I'm going to lean off the Tigers bandwagon there too. Side of me that wants to go after Knights, kind of revenge game for Hastings as well. But ultimately, I'm going to go after the Tigers, and the big reason is, well, Kaiser's huge. But yeah, Dewey, he's I've always found myself liking Dewey. I was disappointed last year where he wasn't able to obviously go out the full season. But yeah, I think, and then you just have those games. You have those moments, and Dewey's one of those players where, because he's not really calling that rep scene, you go, how good is he? And then he has one of those low patches, and then he gets injured, and then you go, oh yeah. But then when he's fit and wearing, I'm not saying he's Origin caliber, but man, he's a very good player. I still like 6 is a really good position for him. I would love to see him as a ball playing lock. I don't think necessarily that is the best case scenario, but I think just the mold of him might suit that position. So yeah, for me, Dewey, especially with the home advantage as well. But yeah, I think Clemmer is going to be a huge part of this as well. Obviously, and that's where the redemption game comes into it too. So I think the Tigers 4-pack are going to win this battle. And I think that's going to help their spine too. So yeah, I'm going with the Tigers as well, mate. And Dewey's probably going to be the one collecting most of those try involvements.
Perfect. The last game, sum it all up, the Dragons versus the Titans in the match of the round. The Dragons finally get to play a game. It'll be after pretty much everyone's played their 2 games, and there'll be teams on 4 points and no points, and the Dragons haven't done anything yet. So you've gone the Battle of the Robins, and excuse me, I don't even know what you're talking about here, so take it away.
Oh well, you got the Batman and Fawn and Hunt, and then you got Robins, and you got Jaden Sullivan and Mr. Tanner Boyd, kind of obviously the lesser experienced half period, and 2 players that, even though talented, their spots are definitely not cemented. But I actually wasn't too sure who was going to be the 6 this week for the Dragons. These are my 2 favorite options for both teams. And like, you might think, oh yeah, obviously, like, they're the ones that have been picked. But there's been a lot of debate, and obviously the stuff's happened with Ramon. But Sexton is very much liked with the Titans, and also the possibility of putting Brinson the second, Campbell to fullback, which we've touched on in the preseason. But I just like, especially Tanner Boyd, I think he pairs well with Fawn. I think he's going to do his right role. And I actually didn't get to watch the Titans-Tigers game. But I was really happy of what I've seen out of him in early stage of his career when he has been given enough chance. And I think Sullivan, he's someone you forget about. There's been a lot of talk about Sloan underperforming, but I think Sullivan has been tossed around a few positions, utility, hooker, bit of 6. And I think he has got a lot of potential here. And I just think these guys are going to be really key to, if they exceed expectations or drop expectations as the season goes on. In terms of try involvements, I've gone for line break and try involvements from Sullivan and Tanner Boyd, who's going to have the most. I believe Tanner Boyd is, and I think a lot of that does have to come down to him actually not just taking on the role, but being able to succeed in stepping up for Fawn, who is carrying a little bit of a injury. Because when I seen the team lineup before, I was like, hang on, I thought this was early in the day before I made these selections. I thought Ford was definitely going to be out, but they've downgraded it. So yeah, I think Tanner Boyd is going to prove that he's just a little bit better than people expect him. And I think Sullivan's going to be cement his spot as a six for the Dragons, not just for the season, but for future. I think he's got a lot of talent. He's got that physical presence where you have those doubts straight away. But look at Tom Dearden, look at a lot of other players. Look, Sam Walker's a bit of a class above in terms of like everyone just knew he had talent from the get-go. But I think Sullivan is in for a big year, and he's going to be one of the shining lights for what I'm predicting will be a down year for the Dragons. But yeah, I think Boyd is going to step up for the Titans this week, and they're going to be upsetting the Dragons, which sounds funny because yeah, they are currently not favored to win the game if you look at the odds. But for me, they're my pick this week as well.
Yeah,
It was sorry to cut you off. It was tough finding the matchup this week. Can I just say?
Yeah.
This one, I stitched myself up here.
Yeah, you know what? The market's moved. The Titans are now favourites. So I think that's off the back of the news forums playing. So
it was 5 minutes ago. It was, and then this has come hot off the press. And
so Sportsbet have now changed that. So thanks, Sportsbet, for the live odds for our show. You're keeping us up to date. I'm with you. I feel like this is really hard one to pick. And I was more leaning towards Sullivan purely off the fact that he was the only real shining light for the Dragons in the Charity Shield game, which is a game we sort of go off. And when he came on, he sort of sparked him. He did score that try, so that was nice to see. He's got that about him that in his game. But I think Tanner Boyd, and off the fact that Foran isn't 100% fit, whether he plays or not, I don't know if he'll be as involved as he was last week because of it. So I just think Tanner Boyd steps up and takes reins of the ship, basically. So I'll lock in Tanner Boyd as well. That's all we've got time for, guys. It goes quick when you're having fun and talking about fun stuff like the league being back. So, Luke, been great to have you on. Hopefully you get to watch a little bit more footy this week.
Yeah, I think it's more me just going to sleep a bit early these days. I feel like a granddad. But no, I'm hoping so too. Just some pretty good matchups, especially that Thursday night game as well. But hopefully I can see my boys live this week. And yeah, thanks Joel for that. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And it should be a crack of a weekend.
Yeah, perfect. Enjoy your week, guys. Enjoy the footy round 2. Cannot wait for it. Hopefully I'll claw some points back in this stat wars.